the complete history of the Wunderwaffe DG-2 in COD Zombies. This iconic weapon first made its debut to players in Shinonuma of World at War back in June 2009 and was obtainable through the mystery box. Players were in awe of its striking design, completely unique functionality, and devastating firepower, sending an electrical surge of energy capable of ensnaring and executing 10 zombies with a single shot in a close chain reaction. It also came with an element of risk to its usage, as the player themselves can be included in the chain reaction if they get too close. This would not only inflict damage on the player but also stun them with an electrical charge and disorient their movement. The DG-2 also marks the very first weapon in Zombies history that dealt infinite damage, and it's the second ever wonder weapon that was introduced to players following the ray gun. The immense firepower of this weapon, combined with World at War Shinonuma's 24 zombie limit per round on solo play, all translated to players being able to eliminate any round on this version of the map with only 3 shots. But people were very curious as to the lore behind where this weapon actually came from, and as Richtofen claims in the quotes in Shinonuma, he's not only familiar with the weapon, but he invented it. When this weapon and this map debuted, players naturally wanted more answers, and pretty soon we began to get them. Doris dropped in the final DLC pack for World at War in August of 2009 and reintroduced players to the Wunderwaffe. Not only were changes made to the weapon itself, but the narrative behind its origins were made very clear. Various hidden radios around Doris could transmit audio logs that paint a picture of the DG-2 being developed by Richtofen at that very facility, all with the intent of mass production to ensure Germany's victory in World War II. Not only this, but radios and character quotes also allude to the use of element 115 as the power source for the weapon technology, and it's from here that the dots began to connect with the fanbase, drawing back to the previously mysterious 115 crate in Shinonuma and the accompanying meteor found outside of the map that when shot, Richtofen would reveal as the source of the element. Functionality of the DG-2 was also changed in Doris, where it no longer spawns power drops and came with a new variant that was acquired through the Pack-a-Punch, dubbed the Wunderwaffe DG-3JZ. This variant comes finished with a deep metallic midnight finish and changes the hue of the electricity to red. It also doubles the clip size, doubles the reserve ammo, and slightly reduces the reload time. It's heavily believed that the DG-3 from World at War also came with a monumental buff to its effectiveness, where it could kill up to 24 zombies in a single shot. However, this is actually a myth. At least when testing with the up-to-date version of the game here on PC, the DG-3 is still locked at 10 kills per chain. Nonetheless, this weapon was notoriously the most devastating weapon in the entire game. Unfortunately though, this power came with one major defect. Exclusively in World at War's Doris, any self-inflicted damage from the Wunderwaffe DG-2 or DG-3 will cause a glitch in which health regeneration becomes disabled. As a result, the damage caused by the initial shock will leave players in a state of being only 1 or 2 hits away from death, even with Juggernaut. Players in solo games had to be extremely careful when wielding the Wunderwaffe in Doris, as quick revive in World at War did not yet have self-revive functionality. But this still didn't stop the weapon being held in high regard within the community and widely sought after by the fans. A large contributing factor to this is that only one person at a time would be able to claim ownership of this weapon in co-op matches. After the release of Black Ops 1 in 2010, players who bought the hardened edition instantly had access to remasters of the original World at War maps. This allowed the Wunderwaffe to return both in Shinonuma and Doris once again, with a few minor changes. Firstly, the upgraded variant found in Doris is now gold plated. Additionally, the now infamous health glitch was completely fixed, and the Wunderwaffe now just inflicts a small amount of splash damage instead of electrocuting you. Curiously though, using console commands, players were also able to access the golden DG-3 in Shinonuma, which is fully functional but missing a few sound effects. The DG-2 returned once more in Black Ops 1 within Call of the Dead and could only be accessed upon completing the Easter egg. It's presented as a reward for finishing the quest in the form of a Death Machine-esque power drop. Like a Death Machine, the Wunderwaffe here cannot be taken to the Pack-a-Punch and does not act as an inventory weapon, but instead as a force-locked primary weapon. Unlike the Death Machine, however, there was no time limit on the use of the weapon and will instead only conclude when the player runs out of ammo. Now, as the DG-2, since Shinonuma in World at War no longer spawns drops, and in this case players also can't switch weapons, people were forced to get creative and utilize the effects of things like PhD Flopper to spawn potential max ammos to keep the Wunderwaffe active. This also comes with the added challenge of having to deal with George Romero, who actually receives barely any damage whatsoever from the use of a DG-2. And in conjunction with this, players had to be sure to avoid standard Death Machine drops as they actually replaced the Wonder Weapon. Thankfully though, completing the Easter egg in Call of the Dead permanently converts the death machine reward usually given when killing George Romero into a Wunderwaffe drop. This also includes future matches, so players won't have any issues with reacquiring this weapon. Using console commands in Call of the Dead also allow players to access the Wunderwaffe that can actually be kept in your inventory like normal. Even in this state though, you still couldn't take it to the Pack-a-Punch machine to upgrade it. However, the DG-3 can still be spawned with console commands as well. But it's important to note that in this case, it's missing very essential textures and looks pretty strange. Now, cut character quotes found in the files of Black Ops also reveal that the Wunderwaffe was originally set to appear in Kino der Toten before being replaced with the Thunder Gun. This is likely because Kino der Toten was originally set to be a DLC map for World at War following Der Riese. Canonically though, the Wunderwaffe played an essential role in explaining how the original crew were transported forward in time to the events of Kino der Toten, where back at Der Riese the Wunderwaffe was fired midway through teleportation. The Wunderwaffe also appeared in the promotional art for Ascension wielded by Dempsey, despite not actually being able to obtain it in the map in any way. But for those keen fans who were really story driven, they were able to read more on the functionality of the DG-2 via the Dreamland server of the hidden Black Ops 1 terminal. It was confirmed here that Element 115 was the source of the weapon's power, that it was developed by Richtofen at Der Riese, and that it uses 200,000 amperes of electrical energy to chain to 10 targets within a 5-yard radius. But players won't see the Wunderwaffe appear again in a major Call of Duty title until the release of Black Ops 3 forward into 2015, where the weapon reappeared in the Giant. The Black Ops 3 variant of the DG-2 came with a complete visual rework, complete with new animations and changes to the sound design. It also now had the ability to affect zombies beyond the 10 target kill limit by turning them into crawlers or just temporarily stunning them. In addition to the low player splash damage, this gave the DG-2 more of an edge in emergency close quarter engagements, especially when compared to its World at War predecessor. In addition to this, interestingly, Hellhounds are immediately exploded by contact with the energy arc from the new Black Ops 3 variant, as opposed to being electrocuted like in World at War and Black Ops 1. This new Wunderwaffe went on to feature in Zombies Chronicles and can be found in Verrückt as well as Shinonuma. This also marks the first time players can use the upgraded DG-3 variant in these maps as well as in Verrückt at all. Obtaining the Wunderwaffe DG-3 in Shinonuma and Verrückt is done by using the Crate Power Gobblegun. What's fascinating though is that the DG-2 is also loaded into the weapon roster of Shadows of Evil, meaning that exclusively through console commands, the Wunderwaffe can in fact be used on this map. The energy bulbs do not light up, but core functionality remains intact. Whilst it cannot be directly taken to the Pack-a-Punch machine, the upgraded variant can also be spawned through console commands. Neither variant though seems to deal any damage against Margwas, and they seem to be completely immune to the Wunderwaffe's effects. But the next time we heard from this iconic wonder weapon was in September of 2019 with the release of the controversial finale to the Ether story dubbed Tag der Toten. The weapon in this map, however, was radically different in both appearance and functionality, and acts canonically as the predecessor to the DG-2 we know and love, as opposed to being a faithful rendition to the original. This was also referenced by the DG-1 markings found on the side of the weapon whilst reloading. The Wunderwaffe DG Scharfschütze was the official name, and it translates directly to the DG Sharpshooter, which is a reference to the addition of a sniper scope and its revised mechanics. The weapon functions solely via direct contact, as opposed to permitting splash damage like the DG-2, with a shorter arc but a much faster fire rate. Upon a basic connection, it will only ensnare and kill around 3 to 5 zombies, and even after taking it to the Pack-a-Punch machine, a basic direct connection yields the same result. However, as implied by its name, the correct way to use this weapon is to shoot electricity directly at the head. In doing so, it greatly increases its effective reach and can neutralize around 11 enemies in its standard and upgraded form. It holds a much greater clip size and ammo pool when compared to the DG-2, especially when Pack-a-Punched, and when used correctly can actually perform very effectively. Players could either obtain it by the mystery box or by completing a dedicated acquisition quest. What many don't know though is that the original classic Wunderwaffe DG-2 is in fact in the files for Tag der Toten and was presumably Treyarch's originally planned weapon, as it comes loaded with a revised but incomplete appearance plus new effects and all new animations. It's only accessible though by tampering with the code and allowing commands, but both the DG-2 and DG-3 are present and functional in the map, though the upgraded variant cannot be obtained by Pack-a-Punching the original. Besides the energy bulbs being misaligned by 90 degrees though, it's hard to spot any imperfections, and so it begs the question of why both types of Wunderwaffe weren't featured in the map when that's exactly what we saw with the Thunder Gun and Tundra Gun both being featured. What makes this whole thing even more intriguing though is that this particular version of the DG-2 is capable of of pushing past the 10 kill cap and is capable of neutralizing a full 24 zombie horde in a single shot. After a 3-year wait, fans were reintroduced to the classic Wunderwaffe DG-2 in a round-based Shinonuma update for Call of Duty Vanguard. At this point, it had been 5 years since this classic variant was officially seen way back at the release of Zombie Chronicles. This time around, we're in a new timeline in which the narrative behind this weapon has changed. Instead of Edward Richtofen being the inventor of the DG-2, it is now instead Dr. Ulrich Vogel from Cold War's Project Endstation. This new Wunderwaffe has the same classic functionality but a revised model, new animations and new effects. Not only that, but it can also be built for the very first time via a side quest. Alternatively though, the weapon can just be obtained from the mystery box after round 10. The Vanguard DG-2 can be taken to the Pack-a-Punch machine and upgraded through all 3 tiers that the regular firearms are subject to. Besides the obvious things like increasing the ammo count, upgrading appears to increase the electrical arc range as well as the damage done to main bosses. What's dope though is that the DG-3 is capable of both one-shotting the Sturmkrieger and Zabala. This makes this weapon a very handy tool for survival in high round runs. Another welcome change is that for the first time, shooting the upgraded Wunderwaffe now actually inflicts the red hue electricity onto the enemies as well. But there was one standout negative change that was made to the Wunderwaffe in this game, and that's that it can no longer start a chain from splash damage. Instead, much like the Wunderwaffe DG Scharfschütze from Tag der Toten, players must engage with direct hits only. Fast forwarding to 2023, a near identical version of the Wunderwaffe from Vanguard is introduced to Modern Warfare Zombies. It could be obtained either through the mystery box, as general loot around the map, and also as a spawned case through the schematic system earned by progressing through the missions. Upgrading the Wunderwaffe in Modern Warfare Zombies functions much the same way as it did in Vanguard. Some small changes that were made include the return to electrocuting hellhounds instead of exploding them, and thankfully splash damage made its return to kickstarting the energy chain. But I just gotta say, without doubt, my favorite thing about the Modern Warfare Zombies and Vanguard version of the Wunderwaffe is the inspect animation. It definitely breathes new life into the weapon, and I hope that we see more of that in the future with any other wonder weapons that they bring back. Now, time will tell if the Wunderwaffe will return once again in Gulf War Zombies, but if it does, I sincerely hope that when upgraded they allow it to push past the 10 kill limit per shot. But there you have it. That is the complete history of the Wunderwaffe DG-2 from the major COD Zombies titles of 2008 all the way through to 2024. I do hope you enjoyed this video, lads, ladies and gentlemen. If you did, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.